Hello everyone, my name is Ritula Anand and I'm your moderator for the session. Today we have amongst us Abhinav Prateek. Abhinav is a graduate from IIT Kanpur and presently he is pursuing his MBA from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. Welcome to the podcast, Abhinav. Over to you.
Hello everyone, I am Abhinav Prateek. I did my mechanical engineering from IIT Kanpur 2012 batch, worked with ITC for a couple of years, and then did my own startup in the field of waste management. I then did a short internship at Urban Clap for 4 months, and now I'm here at Wharton. I'll be answering questions later on in the session and would be taking you through my life and details to help you understand a bit more about what to do, what not to do.
Thank you so much, Abhinav. Here is my first question to you. It is a pretty generic question. Was IIT a dream since childhood?
Hi Ritula. Response to that question would be that I knew about IIT when I was young, but it wasn't really something that I used to think a lot about. I was pretty focused in terms of I love playing sports and tried to focus a bit more on acads. That was more an upbringing kind of situation. But with time it had become clear that I wanted to become an engineer, and somewhere on the 8th or 9th standard I had seriously started considering getting into IITs, those being the premium institutes in India for engineering purposes. As a result of that, I eventually went to Kota and joined Bansal classes to prepare well for the examination. That was for 2 years in my 11th and 12th standard. It was a tough time over there. It was pretty academic focused, post which I finally got into IIT, and yes, that's it.
Alright, Abhinav. So you have managed to consistently perform good in academics. What would you recommend to the students about managing their studies during college?
Managing studies in college gets a bit tricky at times because of so many activities and opportunities available. But at the same time, it is very important to realize that academics is very important in life. In college, you are essentially developing your core skill strength based on which you will be finally identified in the job marketplace whenever you get into a company. Regarding management of time with respect to studies, I would suggest that everyone should be very regular in class. That is something which I did with complete dedication. Pay attention to lectures, to professors, probably keep asking queries if you're not getting clarity on a few topics. Have lots of discussions with your friends so that you can start thinking more about different topics. Plus, follow strict schedules. So probably you could just come back and revise whatever was taught in class for an hour or so and be up to date with assignments. I guess that's it in terms of managing studies at college, and you should be pretty good in terms of sailing through your exams.
So Abhinav, how important is a good grade or percentage in college?
It's very important to identify what your interests are actually in college in terms of which field of engineering you want to work in. So let's say I am a mechanical engineer, but a lot of my friends in my department were not really interested in doing mechanical engineering. Now why I'm talking about this is to understand that if I'm a mechanical engineer and I want to excel in my field, which could be in a core job or a non-core job, but in a consumer goods company, then it becomes very important to have a good CPI. A lot of companies might straight away have a CPI cutoff while they are selecting you for the interview processes. And hence it becomes very important to have a good CPI because that also reflects that you are a regular student in class. You probably have that IQ level which might be required in an industrial workplace. Now coming to the other side of things, in which case let's say you are a mechanical engineer but you're not really interested in mechanical engineering, your heart lies somewhere else. What in that case? In that case, your CPI might suffer a bit, but then you should be very sure that the engineering subject that you want to get into, for example, you love coding, that you excel in that, so that when you're out of college, you don't find it really difficult to end up getting a job.
Fair enough. You won the Ratan Swaroop Memorial Prize and the Academic Excellence Award in college. Any tips for students who are aspiring to win similar awards in college?
The answer to this question would be something similar to what I said in the previous question. So back in college, I really did not know what Ratan Swaroop Memorial Prize is till my graduation days were very nearby. My complete focus was that I wanted to explore what opportunities IIT Kanpur had to give to me. It was mostly a result of I being in Bansal classes in my 11th and 12th standard. I did not really do a lot apart from studies, and hence I just wanted to explore that side of mine. For example, in the first year itself, I tried to get involved with the cultural council. I realized that's not my cup of tea, and I moved out of it. I loved playing lawn tennis. I started playing lawn tennis again in college and became a member of the lawn tennis team. I represented my college in various national level competitions. In my first year again, I tried out my hands at electronic club, in which we used to design a lot of circuits, and then I became a regular member of the electronic club. Gradually I became the coordinator of the electronic club and then the general secretary in the S&T council, which is the Science and Technology Council. These were the few offerings which IIT Kanpur had to give to me, and I tried experimenting with those a lot. This came from the inherent interest in mine to explore new opportunities and seek out new avenues to develop personally. At the same time managing studies so that my academics did not suffer. Having accomplished all these things in my fourth year, that is when I realized, okay, so there are a few awards for which you can apply, and I just went through the process. Now, when I talk about this story, it's more from the perspective to make you realize that it's again important to understand who you are to some extent and what kind of activities do you want to do. You shouldn't look at the award from a perspective of this is the award that I want to win and what is required to actually achieve that award. I'm not saying that's a wrong approach, but I'm just saying that way you won't be true to yourself. And it's very important to be true to yourself in life, because that is how you're going to excel in life further on. So that would be my advice to you all, that you all should go make the full use of whatever opportunities your college has to offer to you and explore your interests.
Now, tell me one thing. Do you find peer learning useful, and did staying at hostel during engineering help?
I owe a lot of my skill sets and my personal development to my peer group back in college. It is said that a man is an average of what his peer group is. I believe staying in college, in hostels, is a mandate, as in you should probably not even think about whether I should stay in college or not. Because it's the kind of group that you have in college who are all dedicated towards one thing, coming from different backgrounds, different experiences. You can just delve deep into their past experiences and learn from their experiences, which could be so enriching. Also, you cannot get involved in everything in college. A few of your friends might be doing something, a few of your friends might be doing something else. And it's the set of these shared experiences from which you can gain, which can make you a better person and even help you develop skill sets. For example, a lot of different kind of inputs I got during my college from my friends. Referring back to my fourth year probably, when I was the coordinator of the electronics club, which is a technical club under the S&T council. I wasn't thinking of contesting for the post of General Secretary, Science and Technology Council, but it was again my peer group, a group of friends, mentors to some extent that I can say, who came to me and pushed me to actually contest for the election because they thought that I stood a good chance. And it wasn't just that. They helped me sail through the process, helped me improve my speeches, worked on my manifesto with me, and helped me win the election by a huge margin. It's not just this, it's many other times, for example, preparing for case interviews in college or even preparing lecture material. It also brings about different perspectives from different people while you are discussing things with them. Hence, my suggestion would be that you should absolutely stay in hostels at college.
Okay, Abhinav. What would be your recommendation when it comes to deciding upon a company to join for work or for internship?
I would suggest that this would again be close to understanding what you want to do in life. There's also this process of elimination in place. So let's say you're confused about a couple of industries, then you could actually try out one of those in your internship period and try and identify whether you're really interested in working in that company or not, or in that sector or not. If you don't really find it to your liking, you could move out of it and get into a different job. Job switching is not very difficult these days. There are lots of opportunities available. So it's not that it becomes absolutely critical or crucial to get into the right choice of industry in the first go itself. But yeah, it of course depends on your skill sets and your interests. If you know that this is not something that you want to do, then you shouldn't go for it. For example, when I was in Kanpur and I was a mechanical engineer, I wanted to explore a couple of options. Firstly, I wanted to see whether I want to go into consulting or not. And I also wanted to explore my core engineering skill sets. So I decided that I should probably recruit for ITC during my internship period. Rather, ITC or an FMCG company. I recruited for ITC. I worked there during my internship for a couple of months, and I really liked the job, the environment, the kind of skill sets and the kind of knowledge which was there in the industry as a whole. Based on that, I took a decision that I should work with this industry wherein I can further my skill sets much more as compared to any other industry, and went ahead and joined ITC.
Fair enough. So guys, Abhinav worked for more than 2 years at ITC. Abhinav, how did you make it to ITC? And from your experience that you gained while working with one of the biggest conglomerates of a country, can you please share your learnings with the audience here?
So ITC had a pretty simple process. They came into college. They used to have a shortlisting round, post which they used to conduct a group discussion session. And from there they used to interview a select few, from which they finally selected 5 to 6 people for the internship program. Our placement office was pretty active in terms of getting people prepared for their interviews and the group discussion sessions. In places where this is not so, I would strongly recommend you all to sit down with your peers and have group discussions on random topics. So, for example, for me, we got a brief idea, so I connected with a few seniors at ITC and tried to understand how to go about a group discussion and what are the kind of interview questions which could crop up. There is a particular framework for group discussions which I tried to understand. Post that, we used to pick up on random cases and used to get into discussions with my group. We used to set time and try to make it a formal event. It could be in your flow with your friends, or it could be in different groups. Once I became comfortable with a group discussion kind of situation, I then started preparing for my personal interview questions, which range from topics covering your growth in college or back in school or other events which you have taken part in, to what you want to do in future. You can get a complete set of questions online. I prepared for those questions and I practiced those questions with my friends who used to interview me. I successfully landed with an internship. I was completely sure that I need to perform well in this case, and I also started liking the company. I luckily got a pre-placement offer from ITC and did not have to recruit for any other company during the placement season. And that is how I ended up going at ITC. ITC has been phenomenal in terms of development for me. So ITC, as you all know, is a consumer goods company. I worked with the personal care division in ITC. I was involved in an engineering role for 9 months. Just being in ITC, it gives you a feel that how should a big company function like. I was always interested in starting up, but this was a very credible experience to get under your belt. To some extent, I also got lucky in terms of after that initial 9-month period, I got to handle a brand which is called Essenza Devils, a premium fragrance brand. This is a brand which manufactures perfumes in Paris and deodorants in Bombay. I got to understand how the supply chain functions, how a brand functions, how marketing functions, how sales functions in different brands. I got a very good perspective on how to manage a brand globally because we had vendors from all over the world. And it also helped me build a very credible set of network. Plus, I'm still in very good touch, very close touch with my manager. It helped me get very good advisors on board, personal advisors that I'm talking about. So all in all, it has been a very fulfilling and enriching experience at ITC.
Thank you, Abhinav. So what are the long-term career suggestions you would like to give to the students present over here? Jobs, higher studies, starting up, all of that.
All options for long-term career are equally attractive, be it jobs, be it higher studies, be it starting up. It is just about identifying what is the best fit for you. I'll probably take up each independently and try to delve into what kind of personality fit could go along well. So let's talk about jobs first. In case of jobs, it's more about understanding which industry you want to get into. Maybe you might have to make a few moves initially. That is where the difficulty could come in. It's also about whether you are fine with working under someone, because that would be typically a situation in industries, in the job market. The only benefit is that now in India, there are so many startups which have got a very flat culture, in which it's not always a yes boss kind of situation. But there are also the traditional companies in which a lot of times you might have to do things in which you might not be actually interested in without the freedom of saying no. But a lot of companies of late have realized that it does not function like that, and they have also started changing their structure to some extent. I would suggest in case of jobs, you could explore the startup ecosystem in terms of probably working with the bigger startups in India, because that would give you a very good exposure and understanding of what is going on in the startup ecosystem in case you're interested in probably starting up sometime down the line. From that, I'll make a quick jump over to startups, which is essentially starting up on your own. So you have to understand that starting up is not something like one fine day you decide that I'm going to start up and you start up. You have to be really passionate while you're starting up, passionate about your idea, because the journey gets really tough at times. Things are not so rosy in a startup situation compared to a job, because in case of a job, you're always getting your paycheck at the end of the month, which brings smiles to your faces, of course. But in case of startup, that is not so. You're always investing your time and money without seeing results in the immediate future. You might have to run around a lot to get your initial set of customers, to speak to them, to understand what's going on and how to improve your product. Motivation becomes a big issue, because you have to be motivated so that you can motivate your team members further. If your team members start getting a feel that you're not motivated enough, they might start losing interest in their startup. They might start dropping off. Hence, you have to be very sure before starting up that yes, this is an idea that I want to work upon, this is a pertinent problem and I want to solve this. That is when you should ideally start up. A very important lesson which I have learned from life is that, specifically during my entrepreneurial journey, is that you should take decisions and not ponder over those decisions a lot, because that slows down the decision making process. You should take a decision, move forward, but keep evaluating your decisions so that you can correct your paths whenever needed. Probably you might be wrong 60% times, but still that would be the most effective way to go about it. Coming down to higher studies, in case you think that you have that researching kind of ability, you would like to go ahead with researches, you should definitely look at higher studies as a very pertinent option. A lot of people think that probably after higher studies, which would imply an MS followed by a PhD, you would end up becoming a researcher. A few people have this misconception, but it's not so. It's it could be very much oriented towards what kind of industry you want to work in. So for example, and even let's say startup. So for example, you want to do something which requires a high level of skill set. So you could actually go on and start up after doing your PhD. For example, you want to do something in machine learning. You could do a PhD in machine learning in a specific function and go ahead and start up in that function, and you'll have a distinctive advantage. That is why investors would love to invest in your company, because you now really have that skill set required to take the company to the next level. All of these career paths are equally attractive, have got no lack of opportunities in them. In case you're not clear about it, so I would probably go back to the process of elimination. So I wanted to explore the research-oriented path, higher studies interest in me, and we had a program called Search back in IIT Kanpur, in which you had to do an academic research project under a professor. I thought I'll just do that to explore whether I'm really interested in research work or not. I worked on that 2 months under a professor in the mechanical engineering department, in which I was working on a technique called lattice-Boltzmann method, which is used for computational fluid dynamics. And after 2 months, I knew that this is not something that I want to do, and that is when I decided that I want to end up working for a company which could give me an overall perspective, and that is when I decided to recruit for ITC for my internship. So I guess it's up to you to think about it, to introspect, and then decide what part do you want to take. It could be the process of elimination, it could be that you're very sure about it, and don't worry, just take that decision and move ahead. But before making that decision, do speak to a lot of people who have already gone down that path.
Thank you, Abhinav. So here is my last question for you. What are the tips or perhaps feedback that you would like to give to our students here so that they can make the best out of their time at their respective engineering colleges?
This is an interesting and a very good question, because there's something with which everyone struggles. Now that I'm in college, I'm again struggling with this very question, with how to make the best use of my time here. But however, the situation is very different in an engineering situation and in an MBA situation, because I know this is the last time for me that I can actually make a career switch. But for undergrad years, you know that you can do a lot more things even later on. You also have the option of probably doing an MBA sometime later on to do a career switch. But still, getting back to the question, the suggestion that I would want to give you would be something of a philosophy which I utilized in college. You should be free to explore different options and opportunities. In fact, I would suggest that you should go ahead, stretch yourself, try to do things in which you are not comfortable, because that is how you are going to grow personally. You should explore opportunities not only in terms of extracurricular activities, but also in terms of academics. In case you find an interest in a particular subject, you should probably go ahead and speak to that professor of that industry, try to explore different paths. Keep talking to people. It could be seniors, it could be professors, it could be anyone in the ecosystem to help you gain answers to different questions of yours. Be inquisitive. Make very good friends, because these are golden years of your life which are not going to come back. I still remember the times I spent at my college during the undergrad years. I really want to relive those years again, but I know that's not going to happen. So live life to your fullest, enjoy with your friends. Finally, you have to realize that life is not all so serious. You need to get energetic at times and enjoy life. Yep, that would be it. It was a very good experience to be in the undergrad years. I have so many friends now, and it's almost like they are lifelong friends. I can reach out to them at any point of time, and those are the kind of relationships that you develop in college, which you should also focus upon. I guess if you keep in mind these few suggestions, you would be good in college. I will combine a few questions and answer them. So the first question that I'm going to talk about is, is it possible to do an internship in the first year? And then are foreign internships possible? So yes, it is definitely possible to do an internship in the first year. If you refer to one of my answers, you will see that I've spoken about the kind of opportunities that India offers now because of the wonderful startup ecosystem. And startups really don't distinguish a lot in between which year are you in, because that does not really add on to your skill sets. You could be very good even from the first year itself. So you could possibly just reach out to these startups and talk to them and try to understand whether they are looking for interns or not. Doing a more structured kind of internship, probably in a bigger, well-established company, could be a bit difficult, because as you go on further in your studies, you actually start learning core engineering skills. For example, your core subjects would ideally begin second year onwards, and that is when you start learning something. So doing an internship in a big company would be a bit difficult. However, you could also weigh other options, such as doing a summer project under your professor, or probably working with clubs in case they are in your colleges. It could be on some different projects, such as an electronic project. You could make a circuit if you're really interested in it. In terms of higher education, for a foreign internship, a question was posed. So getting a foreign internship in a university is still possible, but ending up with a foreign internship in a company is a bit difficult. I haven't seen a lot of those until unless the companies don't actually come to your campus to recruit for such positions. Hence, it is definitely possible to go ahead and try and apply to a college to do an academic internship over there. And people who are trying to explore options for further studies, I would strongly recommend that they should try and do this. But this would mostly be possible after your second year and third year is over, because again, that is when you actually develop certain skill sets and based on which you can pitch to a professor. The other thing that I would love to talk about is, when is a good time to do an MBA? Is it right after graduation or with job experience? And what is the difference between IIMs and Wharton? And what is the process to apply to a foreign business school like Wharton, Harvard or Stanford? So this is a question which definitely troubles a lot of us at different points in time. This was a question which bothered me also. I also used to think a lot about it. So how my thought process worked, probably I will talk about that a bit. In case of deciding when to do an MBA, it also depends a lot on your situation. So let's say you have ended up with a job and you're working over there and you're not really satisfied and you're not sure what to do next. So it could actually be a very good option to start preparing for your MBA. It could be even from India. There are so many good colleges in India like IIMs, IFTs, FMS, SP Jain, and so many colleges, good colleges in India. So you could start preparing for an MBA, because that would give you the much needed 2 years break, wherein you could again explore, talk to people and try to identify your interests and go for a career switch. Also, it's possible that you might have a premeditated path, as was the case for me. I knew that I wanted to do a foreign MBA. This is where the crucial question of what is the difference between an IIM MBA and a Wharton MBA comes into picture. So Wharton is a global school. In terms of percentages, you have 64% American population here, and the remaining 36% are from all over the world. With such an amazing batch of people who come with different sets of experiences, which could range from 3 years to 6 years, 7 years, there's so much of knowledge that you can delve into. So MBA is not a program in which you just learn from professors and through courses. It's actually a program in which peer learning is very important. Hence, the kind of batch, the kind of people that you are involved with becomes really, really important, because you are finally going to learn from their experiences. And that is why I wanted to do a foreign MBA, because I wanted to learn from my peers' experiences. As you'll get into the get into your own jobs, you'll start realizing that institutes to some extent add a lot of value, but then also becomes about practical experiences, which actually adds a lot of value. And since you cannot experience everything, hence peer learning is something which acts as a substitute for it. Let's say you want to do something tomorrow, you could easily, I could easily try and locate that person in my batch, speak to him, and get things going. It's as easy as that. As compared to when I was back in India and I want to do something globally, it would have been really difficult to take this approach. That is the major point why I wanted to do a Wharton MBA. Plus, I also wanted to come to the US and explore the US startup ecosystem to understand what are the new things which are going here. So that is another reason why people generally want to come to US and do an MBA, because they want to experience the US economic system and work here and gain credible experiences. The process to get into Wharton is that you need to first answer a GMAT. A good GMAT score is required, so it takes almost a month of preparation time. They essentially test you majorly on quant skills and verbal abilities. Then you need to apply, which has got an essay component and a recommendation component. The essay has a lot of weightage in which you have to essentially reflect upon your life, introspect, and talk about what you want to do in life and how have you grown so far. Then there's an interview process, and if you are selected, then you finally get into the college. What you want to talk about is what kind of skill sets are needed for getting a good job and how to improve chances of getting selected. So this is a question to which answering is difficult because it would depend on the kind of sector that you're interested in. The skill sets are very, very dependent on the kind of sector that you want to get into. So I can speak of a couple of sectors, but this won't be applicable across sectors as general. So for example, you want to get into a consumer goods company in which you know that you might have to lead a team or you might have to become a manager. So one thing that you should, and this would be actually true across a lot of industries, because sometime or the other you would actually be leading a team. Apart from your understanding of the function in which you are working in, you definitely do this. So I would suggest that you should, from the first year onwards itself, try to get involved into different events which are conducted by your college, because that gives you a wonderful opportunity to work in teams and maybe later on go and probably head that particular function for your college, because that increases and it actually showcases and exhibits your leadership and teamwork skills to the employers who are also on the lookout for that. Plus, along with this process, you really get refined as a person. You start understanding how to communicate your messages. Communication is very important in today's age. You have to get your word across to your peers or probably your subordinates in an effective fashion, and that is something which is very much valued by the company. So that is again something which you should work upon, and that would depend on the kind of activities that you are involved in. So I would suggest that you all should probably get going and go and join different organizations, clubs, activities which are happening in your college. Apart from focusing on your academics, that is something which I'll keep iterating, that you need to focus on your academics too. And get involved with these functions, with these organizations, and start building on your teamwork, your leadership skills, and your communication skills. Reflecting back on my college days, I really am thankful that I actually tried to do this, got involved with so many societies, which helped me a lot in developing my teamwork, my leadership, and my communication skills. And these played a very important role apart from my core strength, my mechanical engineering understanding, which helped me get a job at a company like ITC, which is a consumer goods company. In the third case, let's say it's a very technically oriented company. For example, it's something which has to do with your core function. Then you need to be very sure that you are very good academically and you really understand the subject well. It could be a computer science kind of a job, it could be a civil engineering job, it could be an electrical engineering job. But in that case, you have to be very sure about your skill sets, about your core engineering skill sets. So those are the three things which I wanted to cover, and I'm just hoping that this has answered your questions to some extent.